This will be a description of the QuickdrawWeaving program's project setup screen. Now the project setup screen is available both from the little line icon on the toolbar, as well as the first entry and the view, so you figure that's the logical place to start, is asking for things like number of treadles. This was a 5-shaft pattern, so I've now added a number of unused treadles at the moment. It will also tell me that when it's highlighted, it's a pattern that could use a floating selvage or should need a floating selvage, as well as the bold over here tells me I've just added more shafts and treadles, and I also have a treadle reducer. So let me go back and look at the pattern for a second. The yellows are the warnings that tell me I've got duplicate threads in the same shaft. The first thread matches the last. I've got unused shafts and treadles. I can also see several of these treadles are kind of redundant and have no value. So if I go back and ask for minimize shafts, minimize treadles, and actually hit the treadle reducer, if I ask for a floating selvage, let me turn off the warnings. When I go back and look, all the yellow warnings are gone. The tie-up and the treadling has been reduced. And if I zoom in here, normally if I click in the box, it would add a thread. If I click on the line, it notes those as floating selvage marks. So that is really what those kind of functionality do on the top there. Now the other thing I also have is the ability of allowing a single treadle per row on the treadling, or multi-treadles. I can also produce a lift plan, and if you notice the lift plan to tie up and the tie up to lift plan box allows me to quickly move back and forth between those two. I can also ask for a rising shed or a falling shed loom, thread draft, profile draft. I do acknowledge a difference. Things like threading drafts have to worry about stuff like treadles and floats. Profile drafts don't. But I also have a tool here to allow me to do block substitution or reverse block substitution for thread drafts. And I can ask for what my beat looks like, whether I'm throwing shots from left or right, which is important on folded projects. I can ask for threading on top or bottom. Normally I'm going to do drawdowns. Right now that tie-up's in the top corner. If I ask to move that to the bottom, you'll notice everything is flipped upside down now. And I can control what I want, the drawing order. The palette control will be a subject of a different video. It's accessible also from the main Warp Weft editor, but it allows me to select and add colors. When I go back to the main editor, the save as default would say that every time I hit a new, that's where it would start with that number of shafts and treadles. Pattern notes allows me to see, and simple editor for adding notes. The message down here shows me how many threads of which color, which can be copied to the clipboard and exported to Excel for the yardage calculators. The floats give me a text description of where the floats. The export format would be a simple to the 30-year-old WIF standard, as well as a new portable standard which allows things like color names and that kind of stuff to add. The thread thickness and spacing allows me to correlate smaller thread sizes to a loom dentage. For example, I could ask for a 10-dent reed. There's various tools there, and that can be linked to the color. I also have an ability of blending patterns, again, subject of a different video, as well as compare different patterns. For example, if I've got a heart pattern here, and I can set that as a reference, and I've got a different heart pattern, if I compare the patterns, it will show me the two patterns. It will tell me what's different between them and how many points of the total intersections. It will tell me how close they are. So that basic drawing controls. Now in the bottom left-hand corner here is which version of QuickDraw you're working with and the copyright dates. And the bottom right-hand corner just turns on a log, so if I need to troubleshoot. So that is the general overview of everything that's in the project setup screen.